Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I bring you a new twist in the challenging love story of the single mother Ly Hoai Ca and Officer Hùng. As you may remember, in the previous episode, Hùng was fortunate enough to be granted a short leave by his superiors. Though brief, that time gave Hoai Ca and Tony precious moments of warmth and happiness. Their little home was once again filled with laughter, and even the simplest family meals overflowed with love. Yet, fleeting happiness always passes too quickly. Today, duty calls Hùng once more. He must say goodbye to Hoai Ca and Tony and return to his unit. The farewell was truly heart-wrenching. Hoai Ca clung to Hùng, tears streaming as she struggled to hold on. Little Tony innocently asked, "Daddy, where are you going? When will you be back?" A simple question that cut deep into his father's heart. Hùng hid his sorrow behind a smile, trying to reassure his wife and son, though inside he carried a heavy weight. After Hung's departure, the house sank back into its familiar silence. Once again, Hoai Ca had to face loneliness and the painful distance in their love. She vowed to stay strong, to care for Tony in Hung's place, and to wait for the day he returned. But just when life seemed calm again, an unexpected storm arrived. Du, a man who had once harbored feelings for Hoai Ca, suddenly reappeared. This time, he no longer hesitated or kept his distance. He was determined to take advantage of Hung's absence, drawing closer to Hoai Ca step by step, using every means to persuade her, even going so far as to suggest bringing both mother and child to live with him. Will Hoai Ca, torn by loneliness and tempted by Du's persistence, remain steadfast in her love for Hùng? And when Hùng learns of this, how will he react? Can their long-distance love withstand such a harsh test? Stay tuned until the end of today's video to discover what happens next in their story. After a brief yet blissful time together, Hùng once again had to say goodbye to Hoai Ca and Tony. Those precious days of leave had given him the chance to live in the warmth of family life, to share simple meals prepared with Hoai Ca, to hear Tony's cheerful laughter, and to gaze into the loving eyes of the woman he cherished. But even the sweetest moments must end, for duty was always waiting ahead. The farewell was a moment that weighed heavily on all three hearts. Tony clung tightly to his father's hand, his innocent eyes filled with longing. "Daddy, when will you come back to me and Mommy?" he asked softly. That small question pierced Hung's heart like a blade, forcing him to fight back the tears. Hoai Ca, meanwhile, tried to smile through the pain, knowing that if she cried, it would only deepen his guilt. In that moment, all promises and all their love were pressed into one tight embrace and a lingering gaze. Leaving his beloved home behind, Hùng carried a heavy heart. Each step away was filled with regret and yearning. Yet as a police officer, he knew his duty to the country and its people had to come first. It was not only an obligation, but also his chosen path, his greatest source of pride. Upon returning to his unit, Hùng was immediately assigned new responsibilities, this time even more challenging than before. He traveled to remote areas with rough terrain and harsh weather, yet he never faltered. Though sweat drenched his uniform and his legs grew weary after long treks, he patiently carried out his duties. He visited villages, speaking gently to the people about the dangers of excessive drinking, urging them to abandon harmful habits rooted in generations. He also shared about the importance of family planning and building a healthier, more civilized life. But Hùng did not stop at giving advice. He listened carefully to the villagers' struggles, poor harvests, children unable to attend school, the worries of families still living in poverty. He wrote down every detail, every number, to report to his superiors in hopes of finding practical solutions to eliminate poverty and help the community grow stronger, happier, and more prosperous. Meanwhile, back at home, Hoai Ca returned to her quiet, familiar routine. In the mornings, she busied herself preparing Tony for school before tending to housework and the small vegetable garden behind the house. Yet when night fell and silence surrounded her, she would sit by the porch, holding Tony close, her eyes gazing toward the far horizon. In her heart, the image of the man she loved remained vivid, the man who devoted himself day and night to serving the people. That longing, though painful, was sacred. It became her strength, her reason to endure, and her faith to keep waiting for the day Hung would return. This morning, after preparing a simple meal for Tony, Hoai Ca walked him to school. The boy cheerfully chatted with his mother, his little backpack slung on his shoulders, waving goodbye before stepping into the classroom. Watching her son grow day by day filled Hoai Ca's heart with warmth, giving her renewed strength. Back home, she quickly turned to her work. The lush vegetable garden behind the house was both their source of livelihood and their joy during these difficult times. Today was cucumber harvest day, the crop she had tended to daily with care. The vines were heavy with green leaves and clusters of crisp, tender cucumbers. Hoai Ca carefully selected each fruit, gently plucking them, inspecting closely to make sure none were damaged or spoiled. She always kept this habit, knowing only fresh, clean produce would win the trust and love of her customers. Once finished, she tied the cucumbers neatly into bundles and carried them to the market. There, at the familiar stalls, Hoai Ca had become a well-known face. Her warm smile and honest way of selling had won the affection of many. Today was no different. The baskets of crisp cucumbers immediately drew buyers. Everyone praised the produce for being clean and sweet, recognizing it as the labor of a hardworking single mother. Before long, every cucumber was sold. Receiving thanks and support from the townsfolk, Hoai Ca felt light-hearted, joy spreading across her face. Returning home, she didn't rest for long. In the afternoon, she busied herself again, tidying the yard, pulling weeds, tilling the soil, and preparing new garden beds. She planned to grow mustard greens, Malabar spinach, and a few fragrant herbs to enrich their family meals. The sound of her hoe striking the earth, the birds singing in the trees, and the scent of the evening breeze created a sense of peace unlike any other. Though life was difficult and her heart still ached with longing for Hung, Hoai Ca held firmly to her belief that with daily effort, the future for her and Tony would gradually grow brighter. And most importantly, she believed that the love between her and Hung was strong enough to endure, strong enough to overcome every trial that lay ahead. When Hoai Ca returned home from the market, the basket in her hands was already empty, sweat still beading on her forehead, her hands carrying both the dust of soil and the pungent scent of vegetables. Suddenly, she froze. At the gate stood a familiar figure, Du. He leaned lightly against the old wooden gate, his eyes carrying both hesitation and expectation. It had been so long since he last came here, and his unexpected appearance made Hoai Ca's heart falter for a moment. Seeing her approach, Du quickly forced a faint smile. Within it lingered both awkwardness and hope. Hoai Ca slowly opened the gate, her eyes flickering with surprise before regaining their usual calm. She knew well that their relationship was not unfamiliar. They had been through misunderstandings and clashes before, but in the end, they had learned to face each other with civility and respect. So, instead of avoiding him, she spoke politely. "Come inside and have some water. It's too hot to stand outside like this." Du nodded and followed her into the modest home. Hoai Ca swiftly poured a glass of cool water and set it on the bamboo table. The simple house fell into a strange quiet, broken only by the cicadas outside and the soft clink of the glass on the table. Sitting down, Du's eyes grew serious. His voice was low and steady as he said, "I heard that Hung has been sent away on duty, leaving you and Tony alone here. Honestly, I worry. A woman and a child. There must be many hardships. I didn't come here for anything else today, just to ask how you two are doing. If you need help, please tell me." At his words, Hoai Ca paused. For a moment, her heart tightened at the mention of Hung's name. But then she smiled faintly, her tone calm. "It's true that Hung is away, but Tony and I are fine. I still have my health and my hands to work and care for my son. I can manage. You don't need to worry." It seemed her words would close the conversation, but Dude didn't stop there. He suddenly reached into his pocket and pulled out a brand new phone and a neat stack of cash. He placed them on the table, gently pushing them toward her. His voice carried sincerity, but also something deeper. "Take these. The phone is for emergencies, so you can reach me anytime. And this money, use it for Tony. After all, he's my own son. I can't just stand by." In that instant, the atmosphere in the small house grew heavy. Hoai Ca's eyes lingered on the shining phone and the crisp bills. Her hand trembled as she touched the edge of the phone, emotions surging within her. But only seconds later, she calmly pulled her hand back and pushed everything toward Du. Her voice was firm yet gentle. "Thank you for thinking of us. But I can't accept. I have Hung, and I believe Tony and I can take care of ourselves." The refusal cut deep. Du froze, the smile fading from his lips, replaced by unmistakable disappointment. He sat in silence for a long time, as if swallowing the weight of rejection. Yet, behind his eyes, another light flickered, not just sorrow, but determination mixed with ambition. Sitting upright, his hands clenched tightly, he told himself, "Hung is away, and she is lonely. This is my chance. I won't give up. I will win Hoai Ca back, no matter how long it takes, no matter what it costs." Meanwhile, Hoai Ca sat quietly, her hands gripping her clothes. She knew today's refusal was only the beginning, that Du would not give up easily. But in her heart, she had already chosen a choice that could not be shaken, her faith and her love for Hung. The door closed behind their tense conversation, leaving two opposing emotions. Hoai Ca stood firm, calm like a small but enduring flame in the darkness. Du, on the other hand, bore the shadow of a man forging his resolve, a hidden storm ready to break at any moment. From that day on, Du began showing up at Hoai Ca's house almost every afternoon. At first, he brought simple gifts, some snacks, a few fruits, or small household items. But gradually, he brought more. Delicious meals, new clothes for Tony, and at times even expensive things, all under the reason that he wanted to care for his own son. At first, Hoai Ca was hesitant, but thinking of Tony, a young child who needed love and attention from both parents, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. She allowed Du to visit, giving Tony the chance to bond with his biological father. The boy, innocent and unaware of the complicated feelings between adults, was simply happy to have someone bringing him gifts and tasty food. That simple joy became the bridge Du had long been waiting for. Realizing that Hoai Ca didn't push him away, Du pressed further. He found excuses to stay longer, to talk more, and even eagerly helped her tidy the yard or fix small things around the house. Every time he saw her struggling with chores, his eyes shone with both pity and determination. If I were here, she wouldn't have to suffer like this. Then one afternoon, as the fading sunlight bathed the roof, Du could no longer hold back. Looking straight into Hoai Ca's eyes, his voice hoarse with emotion, he confessed, "Ca, I know your heart belongs to Hung, but I truly want to be by your side, to take care of you and Tony. I promise to be a good father, a good husband. Just give me one chance." The air in the small house instantly grew heavy. Hoai Ca froze, her hands pausing mid-motion as she arranged a basket of vegetables. Her heart wavered because she knew Du's feelings were real, powerful. Yet deep inside, her love for Hung remained like an unbreakable vow, firm and irreplaceable. Tony, oblivious, looked up at both of them with innocent eyes, unaware of the quiet battle unfolding between his parents. Du, meanwhile, felt his heart pound violently after speaking, caught between hope and fear, anxiously awaiting the woman's reply. But Hoai Ca remained silent. That silence was like an invisible wall, soft yet unyielding, making Du long even more to break through it, to prove that he could win her heart. And from that moment, a hidden tug-of-war began between the distant, steadfast love of Hung and the persistent, close, and determined presence of Du. But then she immediately pulled her hand away from Du's, her eyes firm, her voice resolute. Du, please don't say such things again. In my heart, there is only Hung. I love him, and I will wait for him, no matter how long it takes. Her words were gentle, yet strong enough to shatter the hope Du had just held onto. Still, he refused to back down. His face darkened, his eyes flashing with stubbornness. He tried to pierce Hoai Ca's hidden fears with persuasive words. Ca. Hung is far away now, gone day and night, you don't know who he's with. He's a good man, capable, and certainly many women must be around him. Who can guarantee he'll stay faithful, that he'll keep his love only for you? Think about it. I'm here, ready to care for you and Tony every single day. I can be the strong support you need. Just give me one chance. Hearing those words, Hoai Ca fell silent for a long time. Inside her, a storm stirred. She couldn't deny that his words touched the deepest layer of her fears. Hung was indeed far away, working tirelessly, surrounded by new faces. More than that, he was a man of integrity, strength, and natural charm, the kind of man who could easily draw others to him. The thought made her shiver with unease. A trace of doubt crept into her heart. She couldn't help but wonder, will Hung truly keep his promise? Is our love strong enough to withstand the storms? But almost immediately, she steadied herself. Memories rushed back, the hardships they had endured together, the misunderstandings, the times they held hands and overcame every trial. She knew their love was no fleeting passion, but something that had become part of her very being. At last, Hoai Ca lifted her head, her voice unwavering. Go home, Du. Thank you for your concern, but my love belongs to Hung alone. No matter what happens, I will never give him up. Before her steadfastness, Du could only rise reluctantly. His heavy steps carried him out of the small house, but not with surrender. In his eyes still lingered regret and determination. He knew he had lost this battle of words, yet deep inside, he vowed to keep seeking a chance to win her heart. As the door closed, Hoai Ca sank into a chair, clutching her clothes tightly. Though she had reaffirmed her trust, Du's words still felt like a thorn lodged in her heart, leaving her unsettled. If one day Hung truly changes, what will I do then? But then she drew a deep breath and whispered to herself. No, I must believe. We've endured so many storms together. Without trust, our love could never survive. She smiled faintly, though her heart still rippled with unease. Her trust in Hung was the only anchor keeping her steady against gossip, against Du's relentless pursuit, and against the shadowy fears of an uncertain future. As for Du, even after being repeatedly and firmly rejected by Hoai Ca, he did not see it as the end. On the contrary, within him, persistence and the desire to possess her only grew stronger, like an unquenchable fire. He told himself, a woman like Hoai Ca, the harder she is to reach, the more determined I must be to have her. If I stay patient, one day she will falter. Through sleepless nights, Du's thoughts became restless. His feelings were no longer just sincere affection. They had begun to twist into schemes and calculations. Slowly, an insidious plan took shape in his mind, a strategy to shatter Hoai Ca's last line of defense. Du knew that the strongest barrier keeping him from her was the trust she had in Hùng. If he could break that trust, he believed he would finally have a chance to enter her heart. In his distorted reasoning, Du whispered to himself. Right now, Hoai Ca still believes in Hùng completely. But Hùng is far away, buried in work, surrounded by countless women. If I can plant seeds of doubt in her, if even a small crack forms in her trust, everything will collapse. And when it does, the only one by her side will be me. That thought grew clearer, sharper. Du began plotting his first steps. He would continue playing the role of the caring man, attentive, helpful, always there for Hoai Ca and Tony, so she would grow accustomed to his presence. At the same time, he would carefully sow suspicion in her heart, about Hung's faithfulness, about the distance between them, about possible secrets he might be keeping far away. In the dimly lit room, Du sat alone, his eyes glinting with cunning. His lips curved into a sly smile, a smile filled with both ambition and calculation. He was certain that with persistence and a well-laid plan, sooner or later, Hoai Ca would fall into his arms. And then, as a night breeze stirred the old curtain at the window, it felt like a forewarning. A dark chain of events was about to descend, threatening to shatter the seemingly unshakable love between Hoai Ca and Hùng. Will Hoai Ca be strong enough to hold on to her unwavering faith in Hùng, the man she loves with all her heart, even as he devotes himself tirelessly far away? Or will Du's sweet words, suffocating persistence, and constant attention slowly carve fragile cracks into her heart? Du refuses to give up. On the contrary, after each rejection, he has only grown more dangerous. In his mind, he nurses a dark, calculated scheme, step by step, weaving himself into Hoai Ca's life, exploiting the distance to sow seeds of doubt, to break down her love, to shake her absolute trust in Hùng. To him, all it takes is one small fracture in that strong wall of trust, and their love will collapse, leaving the door wide open for him to claim Hoai Ca as his own. But how will Hoai Ca respond when temptation and whispers of doubt press in on her day by day? Can her fragile heart, weighed down by loneliness and longing, still stand firm? And far away, will Hùng sense the storm creeping toward the woman he loves? Will he return in time before it's too late? All these questions hang in the air, opening the way to an even more dramatic path ahead. Long-distance love is already filled with trials, but when confronted with such poisonous schemes, will it be strong enough to survive? Or will this become the turning point that changes the fate of all three forever? Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover the truth and continue the journey with Hoai Ca, Hùng, and Tony through a story of tears, trials, and heart-stirring devotion.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện tình yêu của mẹ đơn thân Ly Hoai Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Mọi người thân mến, thì như mọi người cũng đã biết, Hùng và Hoài Ca thì đã bên nhau một khoảng thời gian khá là dài. Hiện tại thì Hùng đang phải chuyển đi công tác ở nơi khác khá là xa, cách nhà của Hoài Ca và Tony đang ở bây giờ tới 130 km. Vậy thì liệu Hoài Ca và Tony sẽ như thế nào trong khoảng thời gian vắng Hùng? Và Hùng thì đã được về nghỉ phép nhưng bây giờ anh lại tiếp tục đi xa tiếp. Thì Hoài Ca đã mất đi chỗ dựa tinh thần, khá là cô đơn, và trong cái khoảnh khắc này thì Đô, người đã từng theo đuổi Hoài Ca cũng chính là bố đẻ của Tony, thì đã nhanh chóng nắm bắt cơ hội này, và anh muốn lợi dụng cơ hội này để có thể cướp Hoài Ca về tay mình để giành lấy tình yêu của Hoài Ca, để chính thức họ sống bên nhau. Vậy thì Hoài Ca liệu sẽ quyết định ra sao? Cô sẽ là chọn Đô hay chọn Hùng? Thì mời mọi người đón xem vào tập tiếp theo ở ngày mai nha.